What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Casual Wrestling Daily Podcast. I am your host, the Notorious Nerdy D, and tonight I am about to break down pro wrestling for all the true casual wrestling fans out there. So whether you are listening on podcast networks or watching on YouTube, make sure to like and leave a comment on this week's episode. With that being said, let's jump right into topic number 1 today. All right, our first topic of the day is the new set and production style of AEW, which made its debut last night. The new set featured a modern and sleek design. However, some people had concerns that it looked like a budget version of a WWE set. The question is, what were your thoughts on the new set and production style of AEW? Let's start off by saying welcome to the big leagues, Tony Khan. You actually made it. You finally have a set that looks like a wrestling set and doesn't look like the sewers that the Ninja Turtles used to walk through. I never bought into the two-tunnel system that AEW was trying to sell me, where the bad guys came out of one side and the good guys came out of the other. It never made sense to me. That never made sense to me. And so finally, Tony Khan does the right thing and he upgrades to have an entryway and a ramp that looks like it's fit for professional wrestlers. It's about time. We finally have something that looks like a legitimate wrestling show, AEW Dynamite, and I'm happy for it. I thought that yesterday looked 1,000% better than AEW has looked since I've ever seen a show. It looked like a smaller version of a professional wrestling show like WWE. The only thing I'm wondering is AEW continues to go into smaller arenas, and what happens when they get pushed into another arena where they have that short entryway? Can we finally get rid of the ramp that butts up to the ring? Because that's the only other thing that bothers me. I am all good with what I saw last night. I am good with the video packaging. I am good with some of the new camera angles they were using. And I am 100% good with that 6-screen video wall that they're using as, I guess we'll call it a Titantron, that they're using for the wrestlers' entrances. It allowed for guys to come out and look way more comfortable in presenting themselves. I thought Ricky Starks looked phenomenal on that entry ramp. I thought Jericho looked like he was right back at home. I thought it looked good for Jade Cargill. I thought it looked good for Darby Allin. I thought it looked good on Samoa Joe. I liked all of the graphics that they had. Looked phenomenal. I have a question. Tony Khan, did you all of a sudden hire a new graphics department? Because everything looked top-notch to me. And y'all know I'm not an AEW guy. I'm not going to sit here and just blow smoke up everybody's ass because they do something new. I genuinely turned that show on last night with zero expectations and was pleasantly surprised by what I saw. And what I saw was a product that looked familiar and that appealed to casual wrestling fans. I thought overall, the show was booked extremely well. I think it showed last night that you don't have to have the elite in order to put on a high-level show. I still don't fully understand Hangman Adam Page, but I thought that his graphics and his entrance and the way they presented him were professional looking. It looked good. But here's the thing. This new AEW set, I think I'm going to take it one step farther. I think I like it better than the WWE's current setup. This new AEW, the 6 screens, the smaller entry ramp, I still like the graphics on the floor. I've always thought that is a very cool technology that WWE started using and then just didn't really know what to do with. When the red carpet rolled out for MJF, I thought, man, it just adds a little bit to the character. It just adds a little bit to what I'm seeing. And the visual stimulation of professional wrestling is one of the most important aspects of it, because without it, it's fake fighting. Without the spectacle and without the fireworks and the lights and the music, it's fake fighting. That's all it is. That's the argument I've made forever, is it really doesn't matter how great of a wrestler you are. It's how your package comes together. And this new AEW setup, these 6 screens, the small entry ramp that actually has projection on it. It's more intimate than WWE. It looks like it's more thought out and allows for more creativity than just a giant 50-foot video wall that screams the superstar's name behind them. Now, WWE, when they make use of that wall correctly with like Karrion Kross and even Bobby Lashley, when it's used effectively, there's nothing like it. But for the most part, WWE slaps a generic name up onto the wall, and it really isn't that impressive anymore. We've all kind of become numb to it. I thought that this AEW 6-video wall, the way the graphics were positioned and the way they would cut the camera out as the superstar came out and gave this kind of elegant shot of like the entire set with the wrestler standing in front of it, it makes for good optics. I'm not gonna lie. It made for some very, very, very nice optics. So, I guess you can argue tomato. It's what flavor do you like? I do get that there's detractors who all came out and tried to immediately yell that the AEW set looked like a Wish version. I think I saw that on Twitter. It looked like a Wish version of a WWE setup. But here's the problem. This is the problem that nobody really wants to talk about is WWE spends millions and millions of dollars on market research trying to figure out what is the best and most efficient way to present their product to the rest of the world. Now, fairly or unfairly, WWE is the big boy and they lead the industry. The problem for AEW is no matter what they do, if it even looks similar to WWE, you're going to draw comparisons. But the problem is that WWE has done the research and understands that this style of entryway is what appeals to fans. It is the most aesthetically pleasing for the consumer's eyeballs. So AEW, I commend them on trying to be different originally with the chandelier and the 2 tunnels that look like Ninja Turtles. I get where you were going with that, but it was only a process before they finally realized this is what breeds the ability for these dynamic entrances, is this single walkway where you're surrounded by lights and video screens and pyro. I'm still not in love with AEW having the announcing table up on the stage. I think that's a very far view for their announcers to call the action from. Even if they're looking at cameras, I still feel like being in the action adds like ask Pat McAfee. When he's in there's a different aura of like energy that comes from him being there. But I thought that the upgrades that they made to the announcing booth were probably the biggest leap that they've made as a company, because that little step and repeat banner with like the folding tables, what it looked like, that was the worst thing they had going on. And now we have a legitimate table that has television screens on the front of it, and it just looks like they've stepped into the modern world of professional wrestling. But yeah, I mean, I was a fan. I thought everything. I thought the video packaging at the beginning, the remix version of the Light the Fuse song, I thought it all worked. I thought Tony Khan nailed this rebranding. He didn't go so over the top that it didn't feel like AEW Dynamite. There were still hints of the old Dynamite, but I think that for the most part, it felt like a step forward, and it felt like kind of just a breath of fresh air. And I think that it's important for both WWE and AEW to do things like this from time to time. We expected this big refresh from Triple H. I think early on, there were tons of reports that he was possibly going to alter some of the stage designs. And I don't think we ever really saw any legitimate change. I think the rope colors may have changed at one point. We were teased that we were going to get title changes, and we haven't got anything like that. So it's always something to talk about. It definitely gets people talking, and it definitely gets people to take notice when all of a sudden you go, oh man, that Ricky Starks entrance, it looked good. And just on a side note, man, Ricky Starks he's growing on me quickly. I don't know. There's something about this kid. He is growing on me. Something about Ricky Starks has me excited every time I see him. I don't know if it's the mannerisms and the jerky hand movements and the hand in the face and the trumpets that he has, but something about Ricky Starks has me excited. And I've been pleasantly interested every week that I've tuned in and Ricky Starks comes onto my television. I am excited. Now, This was the first probably start to finish AEW show in a long time that I think was booked at least consistently enough to keep me from falling asleep during the show. But like I have quite a few reasons right now to watch AEW and be excited. I'm a fan of MJF. I'm a fan of Jericho. I'm a fan of Ricky Starks. I'm not, I'm sold on these guys. I'm sold on Bryan Danielson. There's some good things going on in AEW right now, and I hope that Tony Khan can kind of push forward and continue that momentum. One last thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was with this set change, and this is just life. This is just circumstance. This just happens, and it happened to WWE a couple years ago. But you go and you make all these wholesale changes to your production style and to your videos and your entryway, and you have a video game that's coming out supposedly within the next 6 months. Did you just completely date your video game? Like that it seems like AEW Fight Forever is just destined to be doomed with roster problems, and now you have Dynamite has a whole new look that probably won't be in the game initially. Now, it sounds to me like the way they're working this game that they're going to try to continuously update it. So I don't know how hard it is to just implement a whole new broadcast style and entryway and things like that. But I just thought that was one of the weird things that popped into my mind when I saw it was, oh, everything from that video game is going to be wrong now. And that was funny to me. All right, guys, let me take a short break to remind you that I've been putting a lot of time and effort into creating this podcast, and I am grateful for all the support I have received so far. If you are enjoying the show, I would really appreciate if you considered supporting me on Patreon. By joining the Patreon community, you'll be able to help me continue producing high-quality content and bringing new and interesting ideas to the table. Plus, you will get access to exclusive bonus content and other perks starting late January. I am so grateful for the support you guys give me, and I can't wait to see how this channel continues to grow. If you are interested in joining the Patreon community, just click the link in the description of this video or go to patreon.com/thecasualwrestlingshow. Thank you guys again for listening. I can't wait for you guys to see the cool stuff we do this year. And I'd like to give a shout out to the current Patreon producers of this show. It's Zinni, Randall Beatley, Randall, tell me if I'm saying that right. Randall Beatley, who is the host of the Slapping Meat Wrestling podcast. So go check that out. And Ian the Noobs Newberry. So thank you guys for being Patreon producers of the show. Let's get back to it. All right, moving on. Saraya has been building up the anticipation for her tag team partner reveal for next week's episode of Dynamite, and fans have been speculating on who she might choose. However, when the big moment finally arrived on last night's episode, many were disappointed to see that Toni Storm was announced as the partner. But some are speculating that this could be a clever disguised swerve and that we will get a particular surprise instead. Question is, who will be Saraya's partner next week when she takes on Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker? Let me start by saying it doesn't matter who the partner is, because no matter who gets put into that ring, Britt Baker will still be the most interesting and talented person in that wrestling ring. Now, let me say it again, because I know there's going to be some people who don't think they heard me clearly, but I'm going to say it again. Britt Baker will still be the most talented person in every aspect when she steps into that ring. It doesn't matter if it's Saraya, it doesn't matter if it's Toni Storm, and if you want to argue that with me, you're in denial. Britt Baker is the most talented and most important woman in AEW. That's not even a change my mind. That's a, I won't even listen to your arguments anymore. I've watched enough AEW at this point to know who matters and who doesn't matter. The Jamie Hayter experiment is great. It's great. We're going to pass the title around. Tony Khan runs AEW a little bit like, like the local YMCA soccer league, right? Everyone gets an opportunity to hold the trophy, but is everybody deserving of the trophy? Nope, they're not. You're not going to tell me right now that Jamie Hayter, and I get that she's Britt Baker's friend, and this is not a shit on Jamie Hayter moment, but you're just not going to tell me that Britt Baker not being champion is better for business than having Jamie Hayter as champion. I get that you're allowing her to grow, and I get that there's an IWC fan swell for Jamie Hayter, but let's not try to act like Britt Baker isn't a top 3 talent right now in all of professional wrestling. And yes, you heard me correctly. If I'm selecting right now and I have 3 choices to draft the top 3, I'm going Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and my 3rd choice is Britt Baker. That's who I'm taking. From just an all-around marketability, commercial success possibility, I'm taking Britt Baker, not Mercedes Moné. And I'm going to tell you why, because Mercedes Moné, here's the reality. This is why she probably will not show up on AEW next week. It is because Mercedes Moné doesn't want to have to shine a spotlight on herself where she's actually going to finally have to prove if she is legit or not. There's nobody to lean on at this point. There's no big marketing team to lean on. There's nobody to create the character of Sasha Banks for her anymore. There's nobody to write the promos. There's nobody to tell her what will work and what won't work. And if she shows up in AEW, she will essentially be on her own and she will have to prove that she belongs. And I don't think that she's ready for that, nor do I think that she really wants it. She doesn't want to commit to a long-term situation where if it starts to go bad, she's the only person that she can blame. Now, I do think that this was intended to be a swerve. I think that this entire time, this is still intended to be a swerve. But I think this is a swerve in the same way that Triple H thinks that The Rock and Cena are already signed back to WrestleMania 39. I think Tony Khan was and still possibly is banking on the fact that he can convince Mercedes Moné to join AEW before she's actually ever given a definitive answer, before she signed any contract saying that she will or will not show up. And that's a dangerous game to play. It's a dangerous game to think that you have that kind of influence that you could get, because I still believe that Mercedes Moné knows that WWE is a comfort blanket that she can fall back on, and she can sign or she can come back to WWE anytime, and that signing with AEW is a long-term commitment that A, she doesn't want any part of, and B, will burn the bridges back to WWE. I think Mercedes, she knows right now that she can play wrestler in New Japan and Stardom and all these other places as long as they don't conflict with WWE. As long as she doesn't cross paths with WWE or affect WrestleMania, I don't think WWE has a real problem. I don't think they see it as an issue. But the minute she signs on that dotted line and joins AEW, which I'm not saying she won't, she may make up her mind, and that may be the best place for her. But what I'm saying is that is a long-term commitment where she will have to prove herself. And I don't know if Mercedes Moné is ready to put up or shut up. Now, if this actually ends up being Toni Storm, if this whole thing ends up that Toni Storm is actually Saraya's partner when we get to Dynamite next week, what a disservice Tony Khan just did for her. You allowed fans to expect Mercedes Moné and then be disappointed because Toni Storm, who is a credible and talented wrestler, is the actual partner. What a bad way to book that. That's why this has to be a swerve. Like, I'm convinced this has to be a swerve. It can't be anything other than that, because it's such a disservice to Toni Storm. And I don't think Tony Khan, he doesn't seem like the kind of booker who is trying to actively shit on his own wrestlers. What's up, guys? I have an exciting contest for you today. If you go to Spotify or Apple Podcast and leave us a 5-star review on this podcast and tag us on one of your social media accounts, you will be entered to win a $25 WWE gift card. It is the perfect opportunity to show your support for the show and to get your hands on some sweet WWE merchandise. The winner will be announced at the end of January, so make sure to follow us on social media to stay updated. Don't wait. Leave your review. Tag us on social media to qualify. We'll contact the winner through their social media account, so make sure to follow us and stay updated. Good luck, and thank you guys for your continued support. All right, moving on. Darby Allin has been a fan favorite of the IWC for years, consistently putting on impressive performances and showing his reckless dedication to the sport of wrestling. However, despite all of his talent and popularity, he has yet to secure a proper world championship title. Question is it simply a matter of time, or is Darby Allin destined to be stuck in the mid-cards forever? I like this question. I like this question because this is one of those questions where I get to gloat a little bit. Run it back to the beginning of this podcast, 2021, when I first started talking about Darby Allin, and I first started laying out the groundwork for the argument that Darby Allin is too small to ever be a world champion in professional wrestling. Run it back. I was right. It's been, let's look at that. 2021, he wasn't a world champion. 2022 came and went. He wasn't even sniffing at the world championship. And guess what, guys? 2023 is not going to be any different. It's not going to be any different. The TNT title, that is the ceiling for Darby Allin. Now, don't take any of this as a statement that I don't like or understand the appeal of Darby Allin. I actually like Darby Allin. I think he is a breath of fresh air in a wrestling industry where we're starting to see cookie cutter wrestlers. We're starting to see guys like Austin Theory, who had a personality, get stripped of that personality and just become another create a character, aggressive, angry, ornery, just standard wrestler. So I like Darby Allin. I like that Darby Allin still has character. He still has an illusion. He still has that hardy Undertaker, Bray Wyatt. He still lives in that kind of gray area of being a performer. But he's too small. He's too small. And that's not even Darby Allin's fault. That is just a God-given attribute that Darby Allin cannot overcome. He is 5'8", 180 pounds soaking wet. That's not world champions, material. I mean, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope Darby Allin, I hope he can figure out a way to prove the world wrong and that his talent just exceeds any physical limitation placed on him. But at this point in time, I don't think that Darby Allin has a glass ceiling. I think Darby Allin has a brass ceiling. And it's going to be insurmountable for this man to break through it and to obtain the unthinkable. There's a list of guys right now on Tony Khan's radar. There's a list of guys that are due opportunities with the World Heavyweight Championship in AEW. Look at the list. Bryan Danielson, he's due a championship opportunity. Wardlow is probably in line for some form of championship opportunity. MJF is not dropping that belt anytime soon. Jericho's going to start sniffing around again. Moxley's going to want to be in that conversation. God forbid CM Punk returns. He's another name. Hangman Adam Page. All of these names, those names all stand above Darby Allin when it comes to, first off, marketability, and secondly, just physical stature. And it's like I said, it's not Darby Allin's fault. He can blame nature if he wants. He is a train wreck of style and talent. He is reckless. He's insane, and it's fun to watch. In the same way that the elite are fun to watch, but there's no long-term success there. And throwing your body around and doing the overly dangerous stunt. And I don't, while I think it's entertaining to watch, I don't applaud the style necessarily because I think it's dangerous. I think it sets a bad example for wrestlers who are coming up who go, well, I guess if I just get extremely reckless, then fans will want to see me. But the truth is that AEW fans, they connect with Darby Allin because he has a good story to tell, right? He's the emo kid they can all relate to. Only problem is that before that, he was the reality TV star that nobody could relate to. It's hard for me to buy into the whole loner thing when I go back and look at his history and see that there are some anomalies that don't quite line up with who he's trying to be. And then you have the whole domestic abuse allegations, which I'm not jumping into that. I'm not opening that can of worms again, but they do exist. But I mean, you know, the original question is, let's go back and touch on it. Is Darby Allin destined to be stuck in the mid-card forever? I think so. I really do think so. And I don't even know if that should be viewed as a bad thing. Darby Allin should take the opportunity to just make the TNT title his thing. There are people who made a career, the Honky Tonk Man, on mid-card titles, on intercontinental titles. I don't even love calling them mid-card titles because I do understand that while they are more reserved for the middle of the card, I think they're just different titles, right? They're not the big one. They're not the Super Bowl. It's like winning the All-Star Game MVP. It's a cool thing to say you've done, but you never reached the top of the mountain. And I don't think that Darby Allin will ever reach the top of the mountain. I think he may get close. I think they may tease it at one point, but I don't know that Tony Khan is ever going to be willing to pull the trigger and the World Heavyweight title, let's be honest. The AEW World Heavyweight title might actually be bigger than Darby Allin. But I don't think, like I said, I don't think Tony Khan ever pulls the trigger and makes Darby Allin the World Heavyweight Champion. All right, last topic of the day is on yesterday's show, I posed the question of whether or not fans and listeners thought it was possible that Sasha Banks may have been under the influence during her highly anticipated debut at Wrestle Kingdom 17. Now, this sparked a heated discussion and debate among people who heard that video. The question I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask this to myself, is, has my position changed on this matter since yesterday's show, or am I still going to stand by my original opinion? Now, let me start by saying something. I made sure yesterday when I started that video to talk about how I was going to try to handle that topic with white gloves. And I made sure to never come out and place an accusation on Sasha Banks. I never said that she was under the influence. I only stated that to the people I had talked to that had seen it, this was the consensus of the people around me, that it felt like she could be under the influence of something. I just wanted to take on my platform, I wanted to take the time to be able to bring up and get people's opinions on what did you guys think? And so first thing I'm going to say is I'm not going to apologize for asking that question yesterday, because there were a certain amount of people who go, you need to be careful. You need to apologize. You need to take this down. Why? Why do I need to tread carefully when I'm asking a question? I wasn't even making an assumption. I was just going off what I saw and what I heard and asking the question. So I'm not going to apologize for that. And then there was the people who go, well, just give her a break. For what? What has she done to deserve a break? Let's say that for all intents and purposes, she was under the influence. We need to give her a break? That's not how that works. It is okay to question things. It is okay to be wrong. Could I be wrong about the assumption I made? And not even the assumption, the question that I asked. 100%. And it's more than likely that I'm wrong. But there's too many other people agreeing with the video to act like that wasn't a possibility, to act like that wasn't a relevant question. There were too many people on Twitter asking the same question to act as if it was heinous to just raise the possibility and start a conversation. Like I said, I'm probably wrong. I'm probably wrong in asking that question, but I'm not going to apologize for it. And at the time that I asked the question, I didn't have access to the post-show interview. I didn't see her talking after the show and talking much more normal, as I would call it, in a more kind of coherent fashion. But I want to take a second to talk about the audio phenomenon that people keep trying to reference me to about the echo in the arena and how when you talk in an arena, there's a delay from the time that you speak and the voice leaves the speaker and comes back to you. I know about this audio phenomena. I have a degree in audio engineering. I have worked live sound in tons of big stadiums. So I understand this phenomenon. That's not what people sound like. They don't slur their words. Their cadence can be thrown off, but they don't. There were definite words in that line of her promo that were enunciated incorrectly in a funny way. Now, I've seen people tell me she had a cold. I did hear nasal congestion, but what a lot of people don't understand is nasal congestion is a symptom of a lot of medications and alcohol. Now, I'm not saying she's on it, but I'm saying you're not talking these points away by telling me she has a cold. One is not exclusive to the other. Now, I did see people saying that she could possibly have a retainer or she possibly could have got new veneers. That's great. Those are great explanations. Those could explain why your words would come out incorrect. Then there's the people who have just told me that possibly Sasha Banks has and always has had a speech impediment, which I've never noticed. And you have people telling you it's just a lack of talent in her nerves, which I don't know. It could be any one of these things is fine. That doesn't change the fact that when I listened to it, I heard what I heard. But here's the problem. This is the bigger problem for this Sasha Banks army. If you guys want to shut down every other possibility that I've brought up, if you guys want to say it couldn't be, and we can't even ask the question about why this was the way it was, that means she just 100% shit the bed. That means that her one opportunity to reintroduce herself outside of WWE, and she shit the bed. And I don't care. I don't really care about the botched move, finishing move. It's an ugly move to begin with. It's an ugly move that requires way too much setup. And it's once again, it's somebody overthinking something that can be so simple. Look at the RKO. Everybody just look at the RKO. It is the most elegant finishing maneuver ever because it requires no setup. It can be hit out of nowhere. It is perfection. Randy Orton has perfected that. The Stone Cold Stunner. Look at these moves. They're fast. They're impactful. And they're created by the attitude and not by the technique of the move. That move, I don't care who botched it. I hear that it's Kairi Sane that botched it. I don't care. It's an ugly move. So you come out in your one opportunity with this new finishing move that clearly is going to be too complex for some of these other wrestlers to execute correctly. Let's be honest. Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, whatever we're going to call her, she came out in her one opportunity to reintroduce herself to the world, and she didn't create a new character. She just took her WWE character and altered it enough that she won't get sued for using that character. She came out to terrible music. I've heard people try to justify that music. The music was terrible. She didn't make any attempt to reinvent herself or her character. All the way from the way she talked, the catchphrases she used, they were all just Sasha Banks light. And I will touch on the post-show interview that people have brought up to me now over and over. It felt like in that interview that she was extremely condescending to whoever she was speaking to. I don't know if that was the Japanese media. I don't know if it was fans, but she felt very condescending and entitled when she spoke to them. She essentially told them, "You guys don't have questions for me? You mean I'm so important and you guys don't have questions for me? You guys talked about me on Twitter for months. You were brought up a couple times. You made for good clickbait titles. But we weren't, nobody was extremely worried about where you were going. I think most people were just wondering if you were coming back to WWE or not. But I'm just going to talk, I'm going to talk about this honestly and brutally. I don't think there was anything wrong with what I did yesterday in asking the question that the key word, could she have been under the influence of something? I don't think it's fair to try to, I'm okay. If you want to argue that she wasn't, that's fine. But I don't think it's fair to try to knock me for asking the question. All right, let's have a clean finish here. So let me propose today's Change My Mind. And this came from watching AEW last night and watching the Acclaimed, who I think are superstars in the making. So I wanted to leave this statement out for the world, and you guys change my mind. The Acclaimed will be the most popular tag team in all of pro wrestling by the end of 2023. Bigger than the Usos, bigger than FTR, bigger than the New Day, and bigger than any other tag team that exists. Change my mind. So yesterday's Change My Mind, I said that John Cena is the biggest draw in all of professional wrestling, even as a part-timer, and didn't get a lot of pushback. Seems like that most people were in agreement for the most part. I did have a couple people come back and tell me, you got to look at The Rock. And while I'm not going to argue The Rock, you're not going to change my mind. But I will say that I think The Rock can be booked for one-offs and be just as big as John Cena. I think that if The Rock was announced, tickets would sell out for whatever event that he's a part of. I think it's a little bit telling, though, that at the Royal Rumble, if The Rock is scheduled, that they're going to try and keep him a surprise. That's not typical for somebody who is the biggest draw in pro wrestling. As you saw with John Cena, they went ahead and announced that a couple weeks early in order to speed up the ticket sales for that show. And I just don't know about The Rock being, he's starting to get to an age where I think he's aging out and losing a little bit of his luster with the younger fans. I don't know that they're fully sold on going to see The Rock when he performs. I think John Cena is still relatively new enough in the sense that it's only been a year or two since he really wrestled full time, that he still has a fan base. But I'll accept the conversation of The Rock. I accept that as a valid argument to who is the biggest draw in all of professional wrestling. And I think that may, though, speak more importantly to the state that wrestling is in right now, is that you have two guys this far removed from their careers, and they are still the biggest draws in professional wrestling. But that is all the time I have today. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Casual Wrestling Daily Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you have any suggestions or thoughts for future episodes, please don't hesitate to reach out and drop those comments in the comment section. And don't forget to join me tomorrow, same time, same place, for more wrestling talk. Until then, ring the final bell.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Hey, Casual Wrestling Community Show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious Nerdy D. Don't be sure that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit them with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like for show, but you should